Welcome to The Wealth Approach, where money talk is anything but boring. Here, budgeting doesn't mean giving up your latte, and building wealth is something we do with heart, humor, and a whole lot of real-life stories. Join hosts Megan Kowalski and Kristin Donnelley, wealth advisors, moms, and your monthly guides to smarter finances, as they share honest conversations, practical tips, and strategies that make sense for real life. So grab your coffee, your car keys, or your favorite cozy spot, and let's talk money.
Hello, and welcome to this month's episode of The Wealth Approach. Today, we are going to be discussing shifting financial responsibility to your kids, building habits that last. So, one thing that we obviously see often, and I think a lot of people are aware of, but not to the extent of how impactful it can be, is the financial good and bad habits that we rub off on our families as they grow up. So we have a couple stats that we'll discuss, but in general, kids learn a lot of their relationship or behaviors towards money already by age 5. And then beyond that, their relationship with spending and other things evolves over the next years after that. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're cognizant of what good or bad habits you might be bringing home with you that could be rubbing off on your families. I think a stat that we pulled, which is a really popular one that many people know, but the Williams Group did a research project of 3,200 families. And what they found was that by the second generation, 70% of the family's wealth was eroded. And by the third generation, 90% of the wealth was eroded. So again, that doesn't quite make sense on paper, because you would assume if you're raising kids with resources, they would then have kind of a level up and be able to build upon those resources that they started with. So why could some of this be happening, Kristin?
Okay, so well, obviously people are spending more than they're not managing their own good financial habits. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one reason is that a lot of people don't have really a good knowledge of what the bumpers are for their particular situation. I mean, so we're all just humans and we all need to learn, how we can grow what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing right there. So as we talk about working with our children, we kind of have to backtrack a little bit and make sure that, we understand what we're doing. And hopefully, at the learner group, and, you can see on the news, I mean, there's a lot of places to pick information up about how to build good habits for yourself. Some of them we're going to be talking about here. But I want to say that getting yourself established and then passing on great habits to your kids is one of the biggest gifts, that lifelong gifts that you can give them. Actually, they're not going to learn this information anyplace else except from maybe friends or the internet. And, friends and the internet don't have the same hopes and dreams for your children that you do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it's best to get this information from you. And so that's where we're going to kind of start this conversation. So one of the things that you need to know is you need to actually teach your kids about, good habits. So it's a conversation. It's information. It's, sharing, values and opinions and all that kind of stuff. But it's also modeling great behavior, great financial behavior. And so when you think about, everybody has a different lifestyle situation,
Mm-hmm.
but looking at your own spending from a lens of being purposeful and not wasteful.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those are habits that we need to think about for ourselves as well. And it's always easy to see wasteful spending in somebody else. Seeing wasteful spending or not purposeful spending in yourself seems like, not. I remember my mother-in-law would always talk about some outrageously expensive outfit as an investment.
Mhm.
And so, that's the way she justified it in her own mind. But that was right for her.
Mhm.
But my point is that, really taking a kind of a bigger picture look at the way you conduct your own financial spending that you're modeling for your children is really, really important.
Yeah, and one thing you said there, so I think it's important to understand every family lives on a budget. Those budgets can be drastically different, but we're all living, again, like you said, within some type of bumpers and being very intentional about our spending. I was laughing earlier because I think the perspective of us helps because we were kind of poking fun at me earlier. Again, a bad habit could be that you are stopping for your morning coffee. And we unfortunately ran the numbers. Let's say that you get a coffee pretty regularly and you're spending about 1,600 a year on that. If you instead were not purchasing that coffee every day, every year, and we're investing that money, you would have about 128,000 at the end of 25 years. So again,
Right.
something so innocent that is such, it feels like a nominal decision at the time and you're just going about your day, can really add up to bad habits or really good habits. So it's very important, like you said, to be intentional. If your intention is to get a Starbucks coffee or any type of coffee every day, because that's what brings you joy, then you do that. But just make sure that it's built in your budget and you're communicating that to your family that that is important to you and that's why you're building it in. Um, but kind of like you said, just not being flippant and just overspending and encouraging those bad habits that could roll into the next generations that
Yeah.
are less intentional.
Purposeful spending is a lot about self-discipline that you
Yeah.
need to have in all aspects of your life. I mean, sometimes we're better at it in one part of our life than we are in others, but it really kind of boils down to that. It can be hard to do, but it's that's one of the great things is that it is within your own control. It's not like somebody else is doing it to you. There are a lot of things that people will do to you that you really don't have, you have to work around, but your actions you can control. And so that's the really hopeful thing about this.
Yeah. And so one fun exercise I think for families that they might not, I mean, especially super young kids, they might not understand the full scope of your personal budget, just because that could be a little bit beyond their skis or beyond their understanding. You could start small. So if you're doing a family vacation every year, have your kids be a part of that planning process. Say, okay, kids, like here's the budget. This is what we're working with. Where do we want to go? Here. Okay, if we want to go here, then here are the options that we can afford to stay at. Here's how we will travel there. Here will be our daily budget for fun during that period. And really helping them get close to the understanding of the value of money and how that will roll off into their experience. Um, and I think that will just help them get even more excited for those kind of annual family vacations and that they have like a buy-in or part of the planning process.
So, Megan, what we were just talking about is the spending aspect of it, but
Yeah.
how kids really, really, really start understanding money and the value of money and the value proposition between things that they want to purchase, for example,
Yep.
is when they earn money. And I'm 60. So when I was a kid, I told you this, everybody had summer jobs or worked
Yeah.
through high school. And there were a lot of places to do that, that were kind of easy. Your local grocery store, the gas station, even pumping gas. I was a paper boy. I mean, so there were a lot of those kind of jobs that were out there for young people. In a way, a lot of those jobs have gone away, but there are other new jobs that kids can do that are, more independent, kind of that gig economy. And so kids can learn to do something that they like to do or they can do and get paid for it by
Mhm.
somebody else. And so, but when you are earning $10 an hour, for example, shoveling snow as a kid or something like that, and then you look at spending, $9 for some super duper milkshake or something, it makes the connection. Was that hour of shoveling worth that one milkshake? It's really how you start understanding the value of money. So
Mhm.
there's what you need to know about how you intentionally go about spending money, but also connecting it to the effort that goes into earning money.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that as the sooner the better in that. Obviously, a lot of, I mean, each state kind of has a limit as to when kids can start. But you had a cool stat on kids that work in high school and how that could change
Yes.
things over time. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So for kids who work part-time as a senior in high school, this was just one study, okay?
Mhm.
Kids that worked part-time in their senior year of high school, that after they got out of school for the next 9 years, they earned over 20% more than their peers who didn't work part-time in high school. And so if you think about that, I mean, there are so many things. Those years of your 20s are really they have a huge influence on, where you're going to go in life. Often you meet your spouse during those years.
Mhm.
Often you get on a career track, in those years. Now, of course, that's the great thing about life. You can always change. But setting up expectations and learning new skills to the point where you are earning that much more than your peers, really, you can see sets the stage for, probably a better career even moving forward into those really high earning years of your 40s and 50s.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. So I think again, like a fun way to incentivize this type of behavior is again, everyone, especially in high school, they're having fun. They don't want to worry about working and think about that, but you can help try to incentivize that behavior, even if they get a summer job. We've seen people that do like a dollar match or even like, some portion of their earnings match. So let's say their kids get a summer job and they earn $2,000 while their parents will in turn help them with contributing to a Roth IRA for $2,000 of their earned income. And in addition to that, you can help. So that at least helps the earning behavior that we want to encourage them early on to build. But then the next level up to enhance that would be the saving on top of that. So that $2,000 you earned isn't just for spending and fun and, buying that purse that you want. If you can enhance it and say, okay, now of that amount that you earned, anything above that you save will match that as well, or will match a portion of that. So again, trying to incentivize the right behavior. Now, if they hit it big as an influencer and make much more than that, then you might not be able to match it. So you have to be careful with what you promise. Um, but just trying to encourage that behavior early on, especially in those years where, they have that time value of growth ahead of them. It will matter so much more to them. Getting that ball started now is really important.
Yeah, and I think that when kids, like for example, the Roth IRA, that really gives kids, based upon the presentations that I've done with teenage kids, my experience has been they get extremely excited about that element of, kind of adult money management, and the ownership that they have towards that. It can be a really, really great, simple stepping stone to help them take their kind of future savings, their future financial picture more seriously. I mean, they start immediately taking ownership of it. That's what I've found. Um, but I do want to talk about how you kind of start this process of working, and it starts with probably chores around the house. And the tips that I can give for children and chores are really two. First of all, don't ever expect perfection. You might have to go back and wash that floor. They might do a really terrible job. That is not the point of the
Mhm.
project. The point is to, encourage and help them understand that they are capable of doing something that helps others and themselves.
Hmm.
So that's first of all. Second of all, make it fun. I mean, our life doesn't need chores don't need to be drudgery. I mean, chores are the way we care for ourselves and our family, so they should be joyful. And I think I had told you that I knew a woman who, when it came to cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, she would let her kids turn the music to whatever they wanted to listen to as high as they wanted to, and everybody would come in, and while they were cleaning the kitchen, they would dance. And it
Hmm.
just became a fun time.
Hmm.
It wasn't like a terrible time. But then the my last hack is to know when to stop. If you're going to give an allowance for a chore, know when to stop. And when kids get to about, 10, probably, they are now actually can do a lot more than I think we adults think that they can do. And or remember that they can do, I should say. And so then you kind of peter off on the paying for chores, and you allow them to become an active member of the family, helping care for the family. And those are the things that you do. So my point is, don't get in the trap of, hey, I'll give you $5 if you put your dishes in the dishwasher. I
Right,
mean,
because then they're only putting their dishes, and again, that could lead to bad behavior. So it is important to, and another way kind of around that is to have like the base level chores that have to get done regardless. And then if they want to take on special chores over the weekend, like raking the leaves or shoveling the driveway or things that come here and there, but they're not everyday chores, they can take those on and get paid for those. But yeah, that is important to make sure that you have a plan out of that, again, to not only encourage it for that reason as well. Um, Another item that I wanted to talk on, and again, this comes from people have the best of intentions. We love our kids so much that we want to protect them from everything and help them in every possible way. But in some cases, that actually can hurt them. So I would say the best teacher is failure, and that is probably true in most aspects of life. So you really, during those formative years, you need to give them opportunities to fail financially, as silly as that sounds. So even if it's like they get a speeding ticket on the way to school, make sure they're participating in earning their way out of that to get that paid off. Um, because financial failure, once they leave the nest, can be much more damaging, and you want to really make sure that they learn those positive behaviors while they're still at home and kind of in like this protected zone so they're not bringing those down the road.
and I think that this is one of the things that we were going to talk about earlier in the presentation, but it's something to really think about is setting expectations. If your kids do get a speeding ticket, then they are responsible for it. But and that's the expectation. But there's also something that we as adults have to be cognizant of, and that is that you don't want your kids to think of their life is as the best life ever when they're with their parents, and then when they, are on their own, their life is terrible. And so, managing that transition from being part of the family and having access to family stuff
Mm-hmm.
to their independent life, that should be a wonderful time, not a time of deprivation. And so setting expectations, I mean, think about what you're doing for your kids. If you are indulging your kids every whim, like often we want to, makes us feel good and makes them happy. But, you're kind of setting them up with poor expectations for when they're on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So, think about, what is the lifestyle that you're setting your child up for? That doesn't mean you bring your whole family's lifestyle, down because you're trying to, manage expectations for your child, but don't allow your child's self-esteem to be tied up with what you as the parent has. Their self-esteem should be really tied up in what they know, how they spend their time, how they connect with others, what they do for others, that kind of stuff is who they are,
Hmm.
not the outfit that they can wear that you happen to buy for yourself for a special occasion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
No, and that's where I think, as always, we just encourage a lot of communication around this. Again, use us as a resource. We always say, your parents can say the same exact thing, but it just resonates different sometimes coming from a third party, especially maybe someone who is a little bit closer in age. So always use your advisor as an outside resource to help in some of these conversations. A good analogy I like to think when we were kind of prepping for this is like building good, healthy financial habits is very similar to just, healthy habits in general. So these are the formative years, and whatever you kind of build in them, they're going to have to work the rest of their lifetime to work that off or to kind of keep building upon that. And there's no unfortunate financial GLP-1 later in life to help work off in a quick way some of these bad financial habits. So we really have to be intentional about that. And this does not mean, again, like we're, completely cutting everything off and going on a water diet or a financial water diet. We're just saying you have to build in healthy habits. Eat your vegetables. Save within your budget, spend within your budget, help communicate that to everyone, and long term, that should really help them and help them hopefully not become that statistics of the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves.
that's right.
So thank you for joining. We will see you all next month.
Bye.